use that
Jaffa Gate.
Jaffa Gate, because if I keep going like this, ride my horse, I will be in Jaffa. If I go like this, I will be in Khalil, Hebron. This is why the Arabs call it Hebron.
There's the Jaffa Gate and the walls of the city.
Please, everybody, this is a scaled model. Scaled. 150. The scale is 150. It shows you the walls of Jerusalem until the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus 70 AD. 70 AD. Let's move this way. Now, many times when we come here, the question the people ask about the one who made it. He was a professor, Avi Yonah. Avi Yonah. He did not finish this model in his life. His wife continued this beautiful, accurate model, and it came really without faults. We know that we have here only 2 faults, and we don't blame Avi Yonah because he wasn't in the model, in the city, it's an old city. He wasn't there when he made it. He used 3 books of literature to make this model. One of them, the Bible. The second, the memories of the pilgrims. And the third is the books of Josephus Flavius. Josephus had 2 books. One of them was the Jewish Wars, and the second was the Book of Antiquities. And lots of things really we can go and read in the Book of Antiquities about how Jerusalem is described by Josephus Flavius in that book. The Book of Antiquities by Josephus Flavius. We know that he is not really the best literature. He always exaggerates. Wherever he writes, he exaggerates. An example, I don't know really where you put this tower. You see this tower? It's like 50 or 60 yards high. Josephus says, in the north and west walls of Heroes Agrippa's walls, Heroes Agrippa, if you go to the roof of the tower of Vespuccia, this tower, he says, you see the 2 seas, the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea at once. Really, we don't know where to put it to see the 2 seas. In order to see the 2 seas, we have to cut one of the 2 mountains, either Mount of Olives, the 7 Arches Hotel, or you have to cut Nabi Samuel Mountain. One of the 2. But we understand that this tower was very high tower. I walk now near the walls of Agrippa. Just to remind you, Agrippa, it was like 42 AD. 42 AD. It means he was after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus at least 10 years. It was after Jesus 10 years. So these walls, you can forget them in the time of Jesus. We had no walls like these in the time of Jesus. These were added by Agrippa, his grandson. Those walls are really from the time of Herod the Great, and those are at the time of Jesus. So all the city from there until here, the northern part of Jerusalem, was added later by Herod Agrippa.
All this
area was added by Herod Agrippa. Maybe no one house in the time of Jesus in this area at all, between the walls of Agrippa and the walls of Herod the Great. You see, green, this is, they imagine gardens, you know. Herod Agrippa time really, this man, he was very fond in the Roman civilization, more than usual. Don't forget, is a little bit about him. Those who bought the book Living in Time of Jesus from Nazareth, this man studied in Rome, he graduated from the University of Rome, he came here, he saw even all his people are nothing, Bedouins or Jewish Bedouins like this, and I am the only one. So if I am the only one, I have a special garden, this is it. Wealthy people, they used to live in this area at the time of Zagreb.
This is the north.
North, this is the north. This is really 100% well geographical model in all the questions you ask. Size, scales, and many other things really. The gate here is the gate of Ephraim, we call it in the books of literature. This gate is the gate of Ephraim. In
Gate
the
of
walls
Ephraim.
Herod. Outside the gate of Ephraim, a big rock. You see the big rock? That's the quarry of the Holy Sepulchre. See this rock?
It's a quarry of the
This
Holy
is the quarry.
Sepulchre.
It's a quarry indeed of the Holy Sepulchre. Don't forget the scale. Don't forget the scale. And if you go indeed to the bottom of the Holy Sepulchre, it is a very deep quarry. Today, our interest in the Sepulchre, the Holy Sepulchre is built there. Holy Sepulchre is built exactly upon that rock where we enter.
Where would Gordon's cavalry be?
There. We will turn, we'll make around, we'll be there.
Okay.
You see, look to those miserable two civil engineers from Istanbul, Constantinople. When they started to restore the walls, they started from Jaffa Gate. You see that gate over there? Many times in purpose, I used to tell you, this is the citadel of David, wrongly, that's it. 3 towers. Those two civil engineers from Turkey, they started from there. And they started to make their walls above Agrippa. Suddenly, for a reason or no reason, instead of continuing like this, they made their own walls from here to Jaffa, to Damascus Gate. That gate over there is Damascus Gate. Look what they made. They put all this area, which is the Christian quarter today, they put it inside the walls. Now look again, before you don't take this idea, you see from Jaffa Gate, from here, all these walls are after Jesus. From here, all the way to Damascus Gate, they were made by the Turks, 1526 AD. See, these are Turkish walls after Jesus, and these are Agrippa's walls after Jesus. So the place of the Holy Sepulchre is really 100% suitable if it is only the walls. If it is a gate, there is a gate. If you heard about somebody made a gate and not use it, I don't know really. I did not hear in the history about somebody made a gate and did not use it. A gate, and there's a road in front of the gate. Sure, there is a road. I mean, you cannot take it as a good excuse, that this is a gate, and this is a road, and this is a quarry, and that's it. If you go to the Russian excavations today, you will find that gate until now we have it today in the Russian excavations near the Holy Sepulchre. You see, George was waiting in some place here today. When we left the walls, George was here in some place. We went outside the walls from here.
Jaffa Gate.
This is Jaffa Gate. See, like this. We went
Jaffa
outside
Gate.
from here. This pool is still really in Jerusalem. It's still in the Christian quarter market. We have it. See, the citadel is 1, 2, 3 towers
Tower
built
of
by
Herod.
Herod. Everybody remember the Tower of Miriam, his wife Mary. You see, this is the Tower of Miriam. Why we call it there? Because really he killed Miriam here. His wife, his sons, her sons. See it. His brother Faisal and his friend Hippos. Look what is special upon this citadel. This is the meeting between the 3 walls, if you see. If you go down, see? These are the walls of the first temple. 1000 BC walls. The temple where you see the marble and the golden needle, you see it? That's the temple. Now look at these walls, they close the north, you agree? Can you see, this is very easy really. You see, look, my purpose is to protect Jerusalem from the north. My enemy must not come from here. So I close these walls here, and the other side I close it by the temple. So nobody can come to my Jerusalem from the north. North you must close. That's it. These are the biblical walls from the last time we read them from Nehemiah.
Nehemiah.
Today, really, if you go in the Jewish quarter, you see the walls of Nehemiah, these walls. You go all the way until the Wailing Wall. You see the red arrow, can you see there's a red arrow down, you see it? Can you see from where you stand?
Yes.
A red arrow all the way down. That's the Wailing Wall. So I stand on the Hinnom. This is the Gehenna. I believe really this is the pool. All the time I love to remind everybody up on this pool of the 3,000 that were baptized in the Pentecostal day. It's here, exactly here. And these are the walls of Herod the Great. See, look his palace. This is the Armenian quarter today.
Palace of Herod the Great.
See the Armenian quarter, this is the palace of Herod the Great. Look, the rich people, how really Aviona succeeded to show you the houses of the rich people. The red roofs, the space, the water, the streets are large and wide streets. Wealthy people used to live here. Who are those who lived here in the time of Herod the Great? First of all, his friends. The priests, Jewish priests, look, the building with the two domes, you see that building? That is suggested to be the house of the high priest Caiaphas by the Jewish biblical scholars. By the Christian biblical scholars, the building is someplace down. Sadducees used to live here. Remember the Sadducees who do not believe in the resurrection of the dead? They used to live here. And wealthy people used to live in this area. Rich people, Sadducees. What the priests say, the people believe. See, these walls are not exist. These walls are not exist. These civilizations from here because here the temple is half of Mount Zion outside the walls, and all the city of David outside the walls. This is the upper room, David's tomb, outside the walls. See it? In the time of Jesus, this was inside the walls of Jerusalem. Today we suggest that this is the upper room and David's tomb, this place. And this is why the civilizations from Turkey, they paid their life because of this. When they were very proud of their work and they invited Suleiman the Magnificent to come and see, he came, he saw, he was very disappointed. He said, you betrayed me. You mean my great prophet David is outside the walls? He cut their heads. This is it. This is the reason. It looks like really this is the way he imagined that. This is the way he imagined this. It's imagination only. I'd like to have it to stop in here, please. I pointed to you twice. I hope you still remember. This is the water pipe. See it? You remember the ceramics pipe on Mount Zion, the slope of Mount Zion? This water project was done by Herod the Great. He brought the water from between Bethlehem and Hebron to the Temple Mountain. But what's special in our studies about this pipe, it separates between the poor people down to the right and the rich people up to the left. Poor people live down to the right. You remember who are those poor people in the time of Jesus? The Pharisees. The Pharisees. Maximum the Pharisees used to work in the temple. How you call them? The scribes. From them we had the scribes. When you read the gospel, you remember we had some groups of these. Their job was in the temple. You see, this is their way to the temple. You see? All the way you go to the temple from here. Don't go up. You spoil yourself. You go to the temple, you go like this, all the way like this. So this is Herod the Great mountain. He used to call it Mount Zion. Mount Zion. See, look how he succeeded to show you the houses of these people. I walk in the Hinnom, remember the Hinnom. How you say in English? Gehenna. Gehenna means Gai Ben Hinnom. Gai means valley, Ben means sun, and Hinnom means to cry. The valley of the sons cry. Why the sons cry? You know why. Because really Jewish people, even Jewish people, they used to sacrifice their sons to Molech. Molech was the god of the Aramaics, and when you put your son in the fire, he's not going to smile. You remember King Manasseh? King Manasseh killed his son to encourage the Jewish people to kill their sons. You still remember what kind of garbage I have here? Who is ready? Please remember the garbage. The end is the cheese water. Still remember I said the heads of the arrows. Arrow weapons, huh? Weapons. How you say that? Weapons. Okay, you understand weapons. There was a good industry of iron in Jerusalem. Very good industry at the time of Hezekiah. And they used to throw all this garbage to this valley. The third garbage, you remember Molech. Molech was the garbage of the garbage. This is it. So all the garbage goes down. The garbage go down, always. You see, it goes there. To meet there, and indeed here, what we have to do in the garbage, I cannot leave the garbage, you know, a mountain of garbage at the end. What I do with the garbage, I have to put what? Fire. I have to put fire in the garbage. Therefore, what is the translation of Hinnom? Gehenna, how you translate it to English many times? H-I-double-L, no? Hell. H-E-double, sorry, I am sorry. Where is my teacher of English? H-E-double-L, H-E-double-L, the valley of the hill, the fire. The valley of the fire. Gai Ben Hinnom is the valley of the fire. This is where they used to burn all the fire. Something before we continue, look this gate here. This is the gate of the Essenes, the gate of the Essenes. Remember those Essenes yesterday in the desert? Some of the Essenes used to live here as individuals. We believe the upper room was a house for somebody from the Essenes. And these Essenes, they lived between the Sadducees up and the Pharisees down. And these Essenes believed in the cleanness of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a very clean city for their eyes. You cannot, if you are Essene, you cannot spit in Jerusalem. If you are Essene, your journey place must be this valley. You know the meaning of journey place. Your toilet is here. This is why we call this gate, the Essene name of this gate, the gate of the cleanest. Garbage is here. You see these Essenes, they really exaggerate in their respect to Jerusalem. The walls go all the way down to the Hinnom. I did not know if you noticed, they came to sit with me on the table today at noontime. A Jewish friend, I don't know if you saw him, he is going to dig this place really. He had already license to dig this gate. He believed that he's going to find the gate of the Essenes above the Hinnom. I don't know. We are waiting to see Shlomo what he's going to do.
So where was the Dung Gate?
That's the new name. Dung Gate is up. Those are the new names really. You see, this is a Turkish name. Abil Mahar. There was a gate in the top of the Haman.
They got a little place to guys to step in. Yeah, all the way around. All the way around.
I believe this is the Kidron. Go all the way under the 7 arches. This is the cheesemakers, the Rapion, goes all the way up.
European.
until all the way up Damascus Gate, Garden Tomb. And this valley is the Hinnom, the valley of the children. The three valleys, the letter Ish in Hebrew, remember that really? They go down to the Dead Sea, all the way down the Dead Sea. This is the Jerusalem we speak about, 3,000 years old. We call it Zion. In the Bible, the name of this mountain from here until here is Zion, Mount Zion. You see, if this is 150, I believe this will be 60, 70 yards maximum. From the valley to the valley is about 70 yards maximum.
So the S-I-O-N.
Zion, Z-I-O-N. Zion, Mount Zion. And the Canaanite name, the Jebusite, the city of the Jebusites. Who are those Jebusites? Jebusites were Canaanites. All the ites in the Bible, we read Amorites, Hittites, Mittites, Telematites, all of them are Canaanites. See, this is the city of the Canaanites, Jebusites. This is the city of Melchizedek. Remember Melchizedek and Abraham. Remember this important really also in our teaching about. Where you stand is higher than this. Where you stand is higher than this. Look, this mountain is higher than this. This valley is a very deep valley because Herod the Great filled this valley. He filled it really. He filled it and he made these bridges from the upper town to Mount Zion. So to go to the reality here, you have to dig another 40 yards deep. But I wanted to give you the picture that this area you cannot come easily from up down. No worry, I can stop you easily on these walls. I throw rocks, it'll be in your head. You cannot come to me at all. Everything is higher than Jerusalem. South, east, west. The problem is the north. Problem is only the north. See, as the mountains around Jerusalem, I will be like the walls around my people. This is the idea in the book of Psalms.
Antone,
Yes?
this pool to your left.
Yeah, this is the pool of Hezekiah. The end of the tunnel. The end of the tunnel of Hezekiah. 550 yards length, like zigzag. 550 yards. This is the end. This is later the pool of Siloam. The pool of Siloam, Siloam, where the blind boy was healed by Jesus. It is very good, defendable one. I put here my cannonballs. I throw it in the heads of those who come to me. I will not come to my water. It's really very safe. This is the end of the tunnel of Hezekiah. You see, when I say always I walk to Jerusalem, up. You feel how I do it? Grandfather was on a good nice. You see, there is a spring of water exactly here, Gihon Spring. This is why the Canaanites made their city here. Spring of water here, exactly. Hezekiah made the tunnel. Maybe really the Canaanites made the tunnel. Maybe. We have lots of today really new digs in this area. Anyway, leave it, take it as Hezekiah is now. These are the palaces of the kings, we call them. These were not Jewish kings. Their mother was like Kurdistan today. North Iraq, Syria, East Syria. She came to live near the Temple Mountain. Her sons died. They did not bury them here. You cannot be buried here unless you are native to this place. If you are not native to this place, you cannot be buried here. They buried them outside near the American colony. We call them King's Tombs. If this is the city of David, why David is buried up? There must be a reason. I don't know the reason. See, Many times when we say possible or hopefully that is the tomb of David because of this idea. King must be buried in his town. This is his town.
This is the town of David here.
Look now, please, in the big shopping center. One of them is the Manchester
stadium.
area. Look how 4 Hellenistic points you have near the entrance to the temple. In the way of whom to the temple? In the way of these people, the Pharisees. You see, the purpose was really to spoil the Pharisees. The wealthy people are already spoiled. No need for that to spoil them. They are there. You see, he made for them 3 beautiful entrances from the west. Remember them. The women gate, the priest gate, and the money changers gate, this gate. But the poor people, the Pharisees, they go from this gate, they return from this gate. I pointed to you those. And look in your way, you have shopping, you have horses lottery, you have money changers, and you have it here. Remember them, these are 4 Hellenistic points. You go from here, you go from here. Look the steps, see the steps, some of them are really, you can see them visible, you can see them today. These steps, I told you, they are not harmonical steps. Remember why, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to humble yourself. Maybe the one to the right or the one to the left is the pinnacle of the temple. Both of them are okay. The pinnacle, one of the temptations.
Pinnacle of the temple on either end.
Maybe there, maybe there. St. James, the brother of the Lord, was killed on the pinnacle of the temple. They threw him from the pinnacle of the temple to the Kidron Valley. See this building from the edge to the edge. See all he was building. Today how we used to call it? Yeah, you remember it. I told you this. So remember the name of this, the court of the Sanhedrin. The court of the Sanhedrin.
Court of the Sanhedrin.
Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin, you have to be better English. Sanhedrin. Huh? The court of the Sanhedrin. These are judges. Judges used to sit there maybe 24 hours a day. Because remember when there was Jesus, when they found him in the temple, in this court, sitting with the rabbis, discussing with them the Jewish law. So remember the name of this gate, Huldah gate. Huldah. Huldah was a prophetess in the time of Joash. Simeon, the old man gate who carried Jesus from here to where? To the temple. It's really okay. Today, above this gate exactly, we have Al-Aqsa, the Mosque Al-Aqsa.
What's the name of the
Hippodrome,
hippodrome?
hippodrome for horses. Hippodrome, lottery. Hippodrome, always lottery. And if you have it in your country, please remember, who goes to the lottery? Only the poor. The poor. The idea is to spoil things. Deep in the Kidron. Deep in the Kidron. You know, you start to come to the Jewish cemetery. The Jewish cemetery. Remember this morning we walked in there. You know, today the Ministry of... You see, I don't know if you know the name of this tree there. China berry tree. China berry tree. See the tree? This is exactly in the hotel.
Temple area.
7 Arches Hotel. See the tree is 7 Arches Hotel exactly. Look where I am in the Jewish cemetery. Read about him, I love to read about him. See, he
Golden
built the
Gate.
As even what? A little bit open, you see? It's almost open. Why he made it almost open? Everybody believes, especially the Messianic teachers really, they believe that we live the period that maybe we are going to see him. We are almost coming to see him. He's coming to see us. This is how these Messianic professors. Anyway, I don't know if the tomb can stop somebody who's alive. You stand in front of the gate is open. You go now to the Temple Mount. Until the brown gate, you see the brown gate, from the brown gate until the yellow gate, This is the area of the women court, we call it, the women court. Now, where the brown gate inside, yesterday I stopped with you, where the priest sacrifice. Then there will be what we call the dome, the rock, the holy rock of Abraham. After you go from the brown gate to the left, there's a, can you see such kind of an altar? To the left inside, also with horns really. Can you see it? That's the altar where they used to burn the fat or the incense on, or to separate the meat from the fat inside. The building with the marble and the one gate, that is the Holy of Holies. The four walls, the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies distance from the Wailing Wall is about 50 yards. Jewish people believe in those days that the Shekinah fall on the western wall of this building, Sabbath. So if there's no building like this today, the glory of God falls where? On the western wall itself. This is why the western wall is holy. This area here is the area of the Gentiles, the man and the Gentiles. We call it the court of the Gentiles, this area. Court of the women, sacrifice, and the marble, the building of the marble, where the high priest used to go once a year, the Day of Atonement.
Here's Solomon's courts.
All of those.
All around.
Like this. These pillars, you see them?
How tall was the temple? How tall? 30 feet.
Let us say it is like 25 yards, yeah? 25 yards. Take the, see the court of the Sanhedrin?
Number 615.
This is the definitive
Come
temple
here, please, a moment.
where
So one
Jesus
group,
was tempted to jump off the wing of the temple.
please, please. So, nice French.
Court of the women, court of the Gentiles. Not to get all the Gentiles, can get all that. If I get up top.
You see, come here to me, please. The question. Look, here from this corner, all the way up, Agrippa. Up at the top of the roofs, in order to watch what the Jewish people were
Stephen's
doing here.
Gates right here. Came out here
Today, if you
yesterday.
come Friday, go Friday to the city, you see up in the roof, Israeli soldiers are watching what the Muslims are doing here. It's very suitable, very strategical place. So these are the walls of Agrippa. Above them the Turks. La'natullah, here, see? The Turkish walls today from here, they come like this cut. The Turks did not restore the walls as they were. You see this thing there to the right looks like a building to the right. This is the garden tomb you came today from. See what the garden tomb? This area outside the walls, higher than the walls even really. It's almost higher than the walls. This is the garden tomb or the place of the crucifixion suggested by Gordon. That's it. And all these things, they are after the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection. These are the pools of the paralyzed man, Bethesda. Bethesda. Remember the Bethesda yesterday or the day before yesterday we visited? St. Anne. We entered and there was a mass there. This is the Church of St. Anne. It's here.
I'd pay him $10.
Cheaper than a
This is the Damascus Gate. There's the old gate. Here we are, back at the Mount of Olives. last look.
You notice
There
the
where we're
building in
at
Jerusalem, they should be
is the
built from the rocks of
exclusive
Jerusalem.
section worth 1.6 million an acre just for the ground where we're at.
They do.
We're coming up to Gabriel's house. Here's our group looking all nice and neat, clean. As they come from the bus.
I'd just like to have you here for a few seconds. Over there. Just not too long. And, well, I'd like to say to you all good evening.
Good evening.
I've been looking forward to meeting you earlier.
We also have been looking for it.
And every time I think this is the morning, he runs away. He always takes the people away. But I always tell him, you will never fail that you will take them away from me, because I will always have the chance of having you or having them in my house. So I hope that Anton has been doing a good job.
He has. Good job.
Very good.
We are so glad and happy to see you in the office with us once again this time. Thank you. I don't know whether you know their past history. No, I say about the Hafiz. They are entitled for two citizenship. The Israeli one and the Palestinian one. So they are citizens of both people in this part of the world, and there is nothing better than this time of the year to say to people like yourself that came to this land to bring these two people together, whether it's in faith, whether it's in education, or it's in democracy. And as you all know, 2-3 years ago, when people like yourselves thought about a trip to this part of the world, your friends and relatives used to tell you, are you crazy going to that part of the world?
That's been upside down.
Much less. But now we see much more on the news, like I was watching a few seconds ago, satellite news, CNN, and they're talking about the peace process in Maryland, and the peace process that started with the Palestinians in this part of the world. And I always say, and I still say, the answer of this event is my prayer as well as your prayer. Because I always say prayer gives us P-E-A-C-E. Anything else is P-R-E-C-E. See the difference? And I was so glad to take my phone when communism collapsed. It was my first trip to the United States in 1961. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was taken around by a bunch of ladies showing me what they call it the fallout shelters. You know what I mean? Fallout shelters? This and this and that. And I was shocked. Such a great country, such a rich country, such a country of people of God are afraid from communism, the ungodly. So I had to speak to the campus. And I started it with that money that you touch every minute of your life in America. What is it? The
Money.
green bucks, the green dollar, right?
Right.
You know what's the symbol of green in this part of the world and throughout the world?
Right.
Life. Fertility. St. Patrick. St. George the Great. You know, the dragonfly. Patrick and St. George, you know, the dragon, man of the dragon. And what currency on earth that you have? In what? In God? We trust, right? Just think of that. Go all over the world. You will never find the thing that you use every minute of your life. In God we trust. So if you have to trust in God, look what happened to communism. Collapsed like a bunch of dirt or what. Anyhow, so I want you to remember us before you leave in prayer that we could see this peace process continue to process, continue to develop, and blesses the whole region. And also I should remind each one of you to remember your most dear and loved ones back at home in prayer. It is the best gift you could ever pick up on this land, and that is a prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, my name is Gabriel. My wife calls me Gabby. I talk too much. But I'd like to share with you what I've been doing for the last 40 years, is to say to people, you are at your first home. And I've been able to prove it. It is your first home, because it's the land and the country that lives with you since childhood. Brother Harvard, they all come from USA, isn't it?
No,
Where?
California, Kentucky.
Oh, you know, USA.
Oh, USA, I thought you said USA.
Do you know what is the meaning of the word USA or where it comes from? Huh? Spell Jerusalem. You thought USA in the middle.
Right.
J-A-R, USA,
That's right.
L-E-M. And Jerusalem means the city of peace. So wherever you have peace, it is your home. And I always say how great it is when we all enjoy the peace in our home. And this is your first home. Just 3-4 days ago, the whole world was in one spirit. And how blessed that those that were here also in body. But in spirit, there were millions of people throughout the world rejoicing the gift of God. So this is the land where the word of God came into flesh and dwelt among us to give the birth of our Lord Jesus. So I hope and pray that you too, in this part of the world, not only having a nice weather, this is supposed to be one of our, winter things, but we were able to provide you with, a bit of sunshine and warmth. I hope this is spiritual. So, we want you to go back home and not say how much you paid for teaching. I want you to go back home and say, praise God. We're happy with this. I know Anton has done a good job. He's a nice as a guy, but he never acts like that. He's like a companion and a friend. And being a Christian, he shares it with you. And your bus driver, George, tells me that you were very good on this coach. Usually he charges $1 extra for those who fall asleep on the coach. And now, thank you, Tim. He tells me his coach is for people to stay awake and enjoy the countryside. Then he tells me if you fall asleep, he may fall asleep. I lose the coach. Ladies and gentlemen, we have built this house north of Jerusalem. Now I can't open that door. We can take up to 150 people. Many groups comes to this part of the world, and they never had a chance to visit and have Palestinian Christian home. You follow me? A lot of people think there are no Christians here. Our saddest thing that some of those Christians who are connected with what we call it in Jerusalem, the Christian embassy. They say that Christians who are here are hypocrites. It is very sad. They make it a political thing. But I'd like to tell you, I'm one of the Christians who can still speak, read, and write Aramaic, the language that our Lord Jesus spoke. You follow me? So the Christians of this part of the world, some of them go back way years and years ago. And since this problem of the Israeli Jew and the Palestinian Arabs been taking place, there have been a lot of Christians living in this part of the world. And we were worried about the future of the Christians in this part of the world. For me, why? Because we say, what's the use of these places that you are visiting when there is no Christians here? To be in the church. Because we believe in Christ as a living Lord, right? As a living Savior. And being a living Savior, it's Him through a living church, right? And a living church, it is through the community, the congregation. So I want you also to remember the Christians here, that we are caught up in the middle between the fundamentalist Jew and the fundamentalist Muslim. Because our faith, you know what it teaches us? Love and forgiveness. Do you know where the word love comes from? It says, for God so loveth the world, right? That He gave us His only begotten Son. And forgiveness, when our Lord Jesus was on the cross, right? He could have the power to destroy the whole world. He said, forgive them, for they not know what they're doing. So there's forgiveness, love and forgiveness. And in the Old Testament, with the Jewish faith, there's no love and forgiveness. In the Quran, the Muslim religion, there is very important. Why? Because the Muslim think, because as Christians, we are spies to the Christian world, the Western world. And to the Jews, a lot of them think that the Christians were the cause of their suffering. So, here we are. But we love both, and we pray for both. And I hope you continue to remember this. So many groups comes, and they never had a chance to visit an Arab Christian. So we say in this country, 2 words, Ahlan wa Sahlan, walking, eating Jerusalem. And as I said, it's north of Jerusalem. This is the western area. If you look beyond the horizon, there is a little light next to it is a building. That's the tomb of Samuel the judge. And that is the site where they believe where Samuel the judge is buried. And the Christians call it the Mount of Joy. When the early Christians used to come on pilgrimages, they always used to come by boat, to the Joppa, which was the main seaport, and then walk, and not in a Mercedes coach or by a jet plane. So when they used to reach the top of that mountain, they used to grasp the first view of Jerusalem, and joy used to fill their hearts. And you know what they all used to sing together? That Psalm of David, 122, that says, we are within thy gates, O Jerusalem. And it continues saying, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. Again, did you take it to the mass?
شفنا saw it from a distance 3 times.
What about the mass? Didn't you take it? No time.
But they have 2 days. Next time, tell Dr. Hafar to give other 2 days. We can see many other things.
If the price is cheaper, we will take 2 more.
You can judge.
Because, a lot of these people, now, the area is open for traveling, not like before, when there was just only the song. So we want to go back to what we used to do before 1987, to all these places, and now we think of going to Samaria, via Jacob's Well, via north this way. Because this is the area that Jesus was on. And the village just across the road, you see, the little village across the road that you came on, it's Nob, N-O-B, the place of the Ark of Covenant. That's where David ate the showbread, when he was running away from Saul. And our Lord Jesus on the Sabbath day was on this road. And his disciples were picking the corn, rubbing it, and eating it. And the Pharisees said to him, why you let your disciples to do something like this on Sabbath? And our Lord Jesus quoted the story of David, eating the showbread. And he said Sabbath was made for the man, and not man was made for Sabbath. And out of this window, if you look straight, is a skeleton building on the top of the hill. You could get up later on and look at it. That is the site where Saul was born. That is the site where Saul was crowned as the first king of Israel. And that's the site where Saul had his palace. King Hossein of Jordan, in 1966, started to build his royal palace. And he left it before it was finished because of the 6-day war. So if he would have finished it and he would have still been here, we could have worked with each other. You see, that's why the king was here. And in this direction, which is east, is Anatoth, the birthplace of Jeremiah. You know, Jeremiah was the man who took the people of Jerusalem in captivity to Babylonia, and he asked them to recite that beautiful Psalm 136 that says, if I ever forget to think of you, Jerusalem, may my right hand stop to you. Anyhow, I hope I did my best. My wife is away. That's what she says. I usually talk more than, but what I have said is shared. So we have two sections of this table. This is my wife's section. My wife is British, you know, from England. And you know, the Britishers are well known for their afternoon English cup of tea. And this section is my section. We have Coke, we have Sprite, we have Orange, and then we have what we call it the local wine made by the Trappist fathers. You know, it's a monastery, and it's red and white wine. So those who would like to have is over there. And then on the table, the most important one of all of the sweets we have is the baklava. And this is called Jerusalem baklava. This goes way back to the Greek time, because the Greeks are making it in Greece today, but not the same flavor. It's made of 50 layers of very thin dough, a layer of pistachio nuts, and a layer of dough. It's called baklava. So we have that on the table as well, and other cookies. And you enjoy it and feel at home. So those who like to come and view the place of, what's his name? This is my wife, my boss.
Hello.
She is Gerard. Okay?
We start?
Somebody for the tea.
Go tea over there. You want the ice with it?
Very important. Oh, I didn't get that candelabra. Here, let me shoot it from the other side.
Okay.
Well, let's see if we can shoot this.
That's the one you get. It's nice.
This is the view from Gabriel's house. Get all of our group here.
When they walk in, they'll probably say, well, I can put something.
Go ahead. Give me a close up here. If you could just tell me about how you were connected with it.
When they were found, I was living in Jerusalem. And our community, which is the Assyrian community, lives in every town and city in what was called Palestine. And one of our people was a shoemaker, and he used to do a job for the Bedouins, which is very simple slippers, especially most of them were used car tires. And his parents used to barter with the Bedouins what they have with what they need, barter.
Trade.
And these Bedouins lived near the city of Bethlehem. And they used to come once a week on Saturday for their trading. And also some of these people used to live very near to the Dead Sea, which shepherd, a very pastoral area for their flock, especially the goats living everywhere. And also some of them used to be smugglers between the east bank of the River Jordan and the west bank, which is Palestine. Because on the east bank things were very cheap, and they used to smuggle them, especially in summer, when River Jordan flow into the Dead Sea was very low, which they can cross. So the custom officers always used to chase them. And the Bedouins are well known, having good sight, good hearing. So if they used to see the soldiers coming, they used to unload their donkeys in the wadis or hide them in the caves, and then they jump on their donkey as if they had nothing. And when they used to see the donkeys, the customs gone, they used to collect them and continue. So it says that a shepherd lost his sheep, but it's not true. A Bedouin hid it in the cave, and when he came to collect it, he saw the jars. And these were the jars that the Bibles, the old tales say, the hidden
Manuscripts?
no, hidden gold.
Oh.
So they broke in them. These are parchment came. So they carried it with them to Bethlehem. And they brought it to the shoemaker. And the shoemaker would take them for 25 cents. They were brought to my bishop in Jerusalem because most of them were written in Aramaic, which is our mother tongue. And I was the driver of the bishop, taking him first to the American School of Oriental Research, which now the name has changed to Albright Institute, and they were not interested. And a young scholar who was there from Perea University in Perea, Ohio, John Trevor, and he said they weren't looking at. They shut him up. I went from there to the Hebrew University to see this Jew who was a professor of Semitic languages. He was not there. We went to his house. To make the story short, Trevor, by accident, met our bishop in New York. He recognized him from his outfit. You know, the bishops in this part of the world have this, what they call it, the visiting dress with the purple and the turquoise and so on. He came to him and asked him, "Are you Archbishop Athanasius?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have the scroll?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can I have the parchment?" I said, "Yes." So I gave it to him. And he took it to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. You know the Moody Bible Institute. And that was the time when they invented carbon-14. And they applied it. And they became to be genuine, dating to the 1st century BC. When the news came, my mother already made me throw away the parchments that were found in cave 4.
Oh, me.
You see? And I took them to, what's his name? The shoemaker, and they put them on the shelf. And the news came, and there were millions. But this is very brief, I'm telling you. The last ones were brought to us, which was called the Temple Scroll. And it was by the head of the Bedouin tribe that did not continue business with the shoemaker. They wanted a better price. They came to me, and my wife kicked them away. because she wouldn't let them in. She was afraid that the neighbors will blackmail her, let's say, because she is a Westerner, and her husband is not here. She letting the strangers go into the house. She kicked them away. When she came back, she distracted to me, and I went straight to the bedrooms, and they told me, what the wife do you have? Not even smiling. How can you keep up with her? Get rid of her, and so on. So they said we went back and vowed and accepted Kando's terms, and they were with him. Moshe Dayan, in 1967, he had to bombard Bethlehem, which was a peaceful Christian town. Some of the shells came over the church because he used to live near the church, and he was in his stand. Then to clear the way for him to go to the house of Kando to get the temple scroll. And Kando would not give it to him. It took him for 2 weeks to Tel Aviv until he reached an agreement with him, and he sold it for 1 million until the money was deposited in his bank in Switzerland. He gave him that scroll, which was brought to me for $100,000.
Can I have some more? You mind?
Oh, and since then,
Thank you.
I walked one day from Bethlehem to Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and we dug a cave, and about 1 million bats came out.
Oh, me.
Yeah, and you know what the smell these people
No.
get behind. Oh, I thought never, I think we'll ever survive in this cave. About a month or so, they went inside and they found what they call it is cover scrolls, which is now in our museum in Amman.
Oh, you've had your hands very close to just
I
all
used to
of.
put them in my basket. Go behind the tourists and behind the foreigners for 10 cents a parchment. They were not interested.
Oh, me.
They were not interested. Yes, you're right. They were not interested.
Your wife is busy. May I ask you if this is an old dress?
Everybody got a diploma.
Is this your card?
I give you tomorrow the card. Yeah, I have 5, 6 cards from him. These days I'm bounded. I have his card.
You gonna give me your card tomorrow?
Yes, they have gotten much from it.
The airport at Tel Aviv, the Ben Gurion. It is Ben Gurion, isn't it? Gurion. We're looking out on the tarmac. We are now leaving the airport at Athens at 12:35, which we probably should have done 2 hours ago. But thanks to Olympic Airlines, we're running slightly late. This is the Athens airport.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Is everyone comfortable now?
Yes.
Welcome again to Athens. I know you've been here before, I was told. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Chrysula. If you find it a bit difficult to remember, call me Chrissy. And I'll be with you today for our tour to Corinth. In fact, we're heading directly there. I think you've met our driver George before, Yorgos. He'll be with us today.
That's a good omen.
It's everything. Should I conduct a test here?
Yes. See how well they do.
It's to the center of the Athenians, the Areopagus, which means indeed Mars Hill. From the Acropolis also you enjoyed a view of the Agora, which we have now towards our right-hand side. The Athenian Agora, do you remember the meaning of that word?
Marketplace.
The marketplace, exactly. The gathering place, in other words. Not only where the shops are, but also a place for, in ancient times, of course, for political discussions about economics and so on. this was a place where indeed, the Agora of Athens, where indeed St. Paul did spend some time. And during his walk within the Agora, he was able to find also the altar of the unknown god. We see always the Acropolis towards our right-hand side, and in the Agora there is a temple, which on the day that you visited the Acropolis, you did see from a distance at the lower level in the Agora. And that is, by the way, the best preserved temple in Greece from the 5th century BC, which was dedicated to Hephaestus or Vulcan, the god of fire and iron, and which, by the way, even up to mid-19th century, had been turned into a Christian church. There are a number of little churches in Athens, which follow the Byzantine style of architecture. One of them we can see over here towards our left-hand side, dating from the 13th century. It's called Ayi Asomati. And they're usually of small size of the Byzantine era. And the architecture is quite typical, the circular dome crowning the top of the building.
It's not that far to climb, it's the trail. It's good. They're small up here. This is the main drag going to the major traction. That kind of stuff.
That's a man down there in that picture. Or bless her soul.
Over Athens direction going towards Corinth. Corinthos.
Capable of repairing all types of vessels, and they also construct ships here. And that's why indeed you see a lot of them in the bay, in the line, lined up, waiting to enter the shipyards. We'll see shipyards further ahead as well. There's a steel industry further ahead. We'll see refineries on the way. Don't get the impression though that Greece is very industrialized, not at least as much as in comparison to countries of Western Europe. The first thing to have visitors even during the winter months, but not of course as many. We have close to 8 million tourists visiting Greece every year. Now, following tourism comes agriculture. Our major agricultural products are cotton, tobacco, olive oil.
Would you believe that it's only 140 and look at this bunch? Whacked out. Tired.
Pilot ship as well. And a tugboat. And it's not very wide, it's rather narrow. It's thick bay towards our left and the Corinthian going towards our right.
Corinthian Canal. Water
We'll
spots
have a
of
chance to see
26
this
feet
later
deep.
on, remember, be able to pick it up again and load it on the ship, depending on which way the ship was going. If the ship was coming in from the Corinthian Bay, for instance, which we, for the moment we have towards our right-hand side, then they would unload the cargo at the port of Lechion, as it was called, just a few miles north track, and would be dragged. It took usually, according to the ancient writers, a couple of days, maybe a bit more, depending on the size of the ship, and then would enter the Saronic Gulf and go down to the other port of Corinth called Kechre. That was the port that was on the Saronic Gulf, on the coast of the Saronic Gulf, southeast of ancient Corinth, and would pick up its cargo there, in one of the ports of the Peloponnese.
Modern Corinth, 50,000 population.
rocky mount that we see coming up a little towards our left and ahead of us, ahead and towards the left, is the Acrocorinth. It's about 1,800 feet high, and on the slopes of the Acrocorinth are the ruins of ancient Corinth. We're able to notice that there are some remains of walls on the very top, on the summit. And these are fortified walls that were built not in ancient times, but in the 13th century after Christ, between 1204 and 1268. In fact, on a day with a clear view, you can even see some of the islands of the Saronic Gulf from the top of the Acrocorinth. So it was indeed very important for them, which is within the archaeological site. It's a small museum, but still gives some characteristic exhibits. There's a room which has the ancient Greek exhibits. There's quite a collection of Corinthian vases in that one. And there's also the room with the Roman artifacts. A number of statues, mosaics that decorated some of the houses of the wealthy in the Roman times, which are quite impressive too. After the museum, then we'll proceed together to the site. We'll walk through the site. We'll have a chance to see the forum, the agora of ancient Corinth, which was in fact even bigger than the one of Rome itself. A city that was constructed in the Roman time.
Just outside the gate to Corinth. We're going to go into the gate here and see the old city. Everybody's getting off the bus for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Picture of Acrocorinth from just in front of the museum. You can also notice some other pictures, as well as the bright sunshine. It feels good now. It's cooler today. What do you think about Corinth?
I don't know, because I don't really know what's here. So I'm waiting for this great tour guide to come and tell me what's here. That's what I feel right now.
It's Tracy to get us stills about her ears.
Yeah. Miss Tracy.
What was that? Oh, that's just a place, Matt. You must feed off her.
Okay, she's deaf because she has earmuffs on.
Well, we got Sydney petting the dog here.
Makes me miss my dog.
Jackie, what are you yawning for? Oh, I do that about this time of day after I've been up for 12, 14 hours.
So are you sleepy too?
I took a nap. Obviously because I was sneezing before. Anyway, but that means actually we arrived here at 2:15, didn't we? Mm-hmm. What time do you have according to your watches now?
25 after.
Well, that makes 25 after 3 then, okay? So 25 after 3 we shall be departing. Not at 4 as I said before, because there's too much time.
Do we need to set our watches up now?
In other words, 1 hour.
Good observation. Good. You ride on it. You can ride on the shoulder.
About like me and one of the brethren.
This way, please.
You're listening where you
Want me to go in reverse?
A few things about what you see in this exhibition hall. This is with all the Greek artifacts. And they're mostly ceramic vases. In fact, there's quite a collection of them here. Anyway, the ceramic vases are the ones that always are preserved through the ages, from antiquity, from the prehistoric times. most inexpensive material. Why bother about it anyway? But it gives so much information, particularly when we come to the stage where they start drawing on them and giving us even scenes of their everyday life. Now, in Corinth, there was a particular workshop that developed here and made the famous Corinthian vases. They were made out of the local clay, which is sort of lighter in color than other types of clay, yellowish. And using that as a background, they painted on top. As I said, scenes of everyday life, but often mythical scenes too were represented. Now, it goes through various periods, of course. It starts with very simple kind of decoration, just lines, sometimes geometric shapes, and more often, in fact, during the 8th, 7th centuries BC. And this is why this period, when they first start making big ceramic vases and putting all these geometric designs on them, is called geometric ages. You'll see spirals, half circles, and the Greek key, for example, which is a very popular design even nowadays, which is endless, and that, for that reason, symbol of eternal life, and often found in ceramic vases which were placed as tombstones on top of tombs. We were looking at this glass case a little before, which has some items that were found in tombs from the 9th and 8th century BC. And these bronze ones were actually needles to hold up the clothing made out of bronze. Some of the gold things that you see here were to decorate the hair, like spirals that were placed on the curls.
What's the Greek word for that?
Porpi.
Okay.
Porpi. We see more vases here in different sizes. Some, the big ones with a big opening on the top, were craters where they could mix water and wine together.
Oh, yeah.
And more typical of the 7th and 6th century BC, second half of the 7th century further onwards, are the Corinthian vases. These are the ones that have been found in great quantities also in other parts of the ancient Greek world. Not only are the Greek city-states where they were exported to, but even colonies of the ancient Greeks, because they sent them there. They had a big business, in fact, with the ceramic vases. You see the yellowish background, the natural color of the clay, and many animals on them. This is the oriental phase, as we call it in Greek art, in a very stylized form, but well decorated. And now I'd like to point out a few statues at the end. This was found just by the National Highway that we were following over before, not far from the canal. And it's the statue of the Sphinx. It was usually used as a tombstone, taking the place of the vases of the earlier times. The Sphinx, according to mythology, was the beast with the head of a woman, the body of a lion, and wings on its back. And of course, it's an influence from the Egyptian mythology, where such a mythical beast existed as well. With a typical smile, and this is typical on all the statues of the same period, the 6th century BC, the archaic period. The big eyes, the very stylized form. Indeed, it does look very Egyptian in its style, because there's an influence from the Egyptians at this time. We see, by the way, one that was made of terracotta, of clay, and it gives you a good idea of how the marble one was originally painted. Of course, the ancient Greeks used to paint the marble statues and even the relief sculpture of buildings. They were not left in the plain white color of the stone or the marble. They were always painted on top. In fact, you notice that we have some architectural parts here belonging to secondary buildings that were made out of terracotta, and you see the painting on them. And that's how the marble pieces would look like if the building was made out of marble, painted. And as we're coming round, you will see in the last case on this side of the room towards our left that we have more examples of Corinthian vases. We're entering now 6th going on to the 5th century BC, and becoming more elegant in their shape and in the design. Now they're starting to have a black background, using the terracotta color for the figures, the red figured vases as they were. We have here an element of the 5th century BC, well preserved. And this particular kind of helmet, worn first by the hoplites, the soldiers of Corinth, is very characteristic. It covers the nose and the cheeks, and it became very popular among all the ancient Greeks later on, in fact. And it was known still though as the Corinthian helmet.
Is that snake skin there?
The city was destroyed by the Romans in 168 BC, and then Julius Caesar and Augustus decided to make it a city for the veteran soldiers of the Roman Empire. And it was rebuilt. That's why most of the buildings are 1st century BC, 1st century after Christ, that time. Now we have here a collection of Roman statues, most of them, by the way, representing Greek, rather Roman emperors. You'll notice, by the way, quite imposing figures always of Roman statuary. Just with long gowns, covered with fabric. And we're wondering about why they are headless. Well, apart from the fact that this is the part that's more sensitive and great conditions, in particular, if you notice the two statues on either side of the you see that they're hollow. Now, as we go along, you'll see a small collection of glass vases. The Romans were very fond of glassware, and really developed more during their time. Quite colourful, a lot of them, you'll notice. We have mosaics also that follow, which were for the decoration of floors of the wealthy people. There is one here that survives very nicely, and which has geometric designs in a very symmetrical order. In the center is the head of god Dionysus, or Bacchus, as the Romans called him, god of wine and festivities. You'll notice, by the way, that we have the vine coming out of vases decorating the four corners. Another one here, which is of a herdsman with his cattle, as you can see. Quite colourful and well survived. Now, at the very end of the room, you notice stuck on the wall the two male figure statues that we have. These decorate a certain building, actually the entrance to the city, the Propylaea, the entrance building, which started from the road of Lechion, I'm going to see further ahead. This is one of the two roads that has been uncovered by the archaeologists at this part. And instead of having caryatids like they did in classical times, like the monuments you saw in the Acropolis, the Roman times had more imposing figures of male figures that decorated as columns this particular building. We have also the emblem of the god's son, Helios, as we call him, the centenary series sculpture that we have over there. Many gods and goddesses were depicted as well. Artemis of hunting we have over here. We have also a sarcophagus towards your right-hand side, a part of the coffin, with lots of relief sculpture decorated. You notice that in some of the red colour has survived the marbles and completely faded away. This was more a trend in ancient Greek times, but still the Romans often wore sometimes other statues as well, at least the captains. And as we're coming out, we'll be able to see some pieces of painting on the trees. So you need something else.
Maybe better if you got it.
There are numerous marble body parts. There are genital, feet, legs, hands, breast. There are also interesting ears. It's basically port, seafaring port, lots of venereal disease. That's wild.
Αυτά δυστυχώς ξαναγίνονταν. Αμορά, σπάθα και εξωτερικά, έρχονται εδώ και έτσι να παρακολουθούν. Μεγάλο καλό. Μεγάλο καλό. Θα φύγει ένας γαϊμένος και ξέρει να είναι εδώ θα μας το πάει σαν άλλο. Αν δεις τα σήματα, αν δεις τα σήματα που είναι εδώ πέρα, κύριε, γιατί είναι καλύτερα ώστε.
Yeah. Some capitals of the different styles in the Greek and Roman architecture. Starting first from the end, the first two are the Doric style, as they're called, with a plain round capital. It appears first in ancient Greek architecture. The Parthenon, the Acropolis, has Doric columns, for example. The third one is the Ionic. This is a more elegant type, appears second and ends in spirals. And the fourth one is a more rare type. It's really a variation of the Corinthian type. We call it aeolic. And the leaves of the acanthus, or the thorn plant, are in more symmetrical order, as you can see, than the actual Corinthian capital, which is the fifth and the sixth one. The sixth one, by the way, is a Corinthian capital with a Chiomira head also decorating, one on each side, on all four sides, that is, of the capital. A winged beast, according to Greek mythology, by the way. The Corinthian, by the way, capital, the name probably, as at least the ancient writers tell us, occurred from, well, this kind of capital was designed rather by an architect who had seen the tomb of his son with an acanthus, a thorn plant, growing on it, and had the idea of making this capital in honor of his son. At least that's the story that we get, probably explaining why it's called Corinthian. And you did notice that we do have 3 Corinthian columns over there remaining from a temple on a platform, for that reason, of course, from the Roman times, with Corinthian columns decorating the exterior. Probably a temple dedicated to the Empress Octavia when it was built in the 1st century BC. And the Corinthian capital was very popular in the Roman times. Often even the body of the column had in relief sculpture the design of acanthus leaves, the thorn plant leaves on it. Let's go further ahead though.
We've had some rain fairly recently.
acted as a fortress, as a natural fortress, always in the background.
Are we going up there?
No. We don't get to walk
Start
there.
climbing.
Well, we're offered quite a view from here. Oh, and don't miss the sheep over there going by the Odeum and the theatre. Those were the two fenced areas that you saw by the bus just as we got off, before we got into the site, through the main entrance. You did see some remains of an Odeum and a theatre of the Roman period. Now, here we're looking at the very center of the city, the Forum as the Romans called it. In Roman times, everything is always well organized, as we know, of course. There's a kind of a big rectangular area left empty in the center, where the people gather every day. And in this case here, by the way, it was also paved with marble. You can see bits and pieces of it still remaining here and there. There were altars dedicated to the various gods and goddesses, tombs of the heroes, worshipped like demigods. There was a statue of Goddess Athena in the very center of it, as the ancient writers say. And all around this big, open, rectangular area were gathered all the buildings. Now, at that end, the southern side, we have the remains of a long store building. These buildings were always very characteristic in the marketplaces. Long buildings with a row of columns in the front, sometimes two rows of columns, like an arcade very much, a gallery-type building, in which the shops were gathered. Sometimes they may have been completely left open inside with no rooms for shops, just offering shade in case it was very sunny, or protection from the rain if the weather was not particularly good. That's how we get those Stoic philosophers that we speak of in the Greek times, because they did spend a lot of time in the stores, in the galleries, walking up and down, enjoying the shade and the coolness there too, because there were always windows left open on each end of them. More typical, though, they were from shops, and in particular here in Corinth, the southern store, shops all of equal size, one right next to the other. Now, I'm just describing all this because there are only ruins nowadays, the foundations of most of these buildings remaining. There was such a store just down here below, and you can see that the walls up to a certain height have survived. You'll notice, by the way, that each one of these shops had a roof, like the one that you see over there, restored by the archaeologists in the arch shape. This is the typical Roman arch, so popular in Roman architecture, which is the type of arch that has a keystone in the center. If it's taken away, then the whole thing falls into pieces. This, by the way, it seems was used as a Christian church for a while, in the early Christian time, according to the archaeologists. You'll see that all the buildings have gutters on each side to collect the rainwater and protect the building itself. Some remains of columns can still be seen here and there. And the sewage system, you'll be able to see pipes which for the sewer, which have survived here and there within the site. Be careful to take notice of that as we'll be walking through. Now, Stoa here with shops at the other end too, but over towards that end, towards our right, western side, there are small little buildings that have been found, which most possibly were all temples. They found at least 4 in a row, and which they have not really identified to whom they were dedicated, obviously because they must have been dedicated to different Roman emperors and empresses each time the emperor changed, could have changed the name of it. So the archaeologists referred to them as the temples A, B, C, D, and that's how they're called even nowadays. At the other end, we can't see very well from here because we've got the trees for the moment in the way, but we'll be getting close to the beam and another bit of view of that section there. There was a council house. And the basilica, by the way, was a typical council house for the Romans. Rectangular building with triangular roof on top, which later on became the third part of the church, indeed. The Christian basilica, known later on.
get the feeling of being in downtown Corinth. This is the Bema, the judgment seat.
St. Paul's Steps when you went to Athens and the Mars Hill, where after his short stay there, he sailed over, came here to Corinth. At Kechre, walked the way from Kechre to ancient Corinth. Must have been not more than 3 miles, maybe a bit more than that. And he came into the city. Now, he saw a very elaborate city, let's say, well designed by the Romans. Quite proud of it indeed, they were, must have been. And with a huge population. We heard, of course, of Aphrodite's temple a little earlier. And this was a place where there were a number of hotels as well. Because since this whole procedure of getting the ships from one side to the other would have needed 2 or 3 days, you can imagine there were a big number of seamen also had to stay here. And the ancient writers also tell us that it was a very expensive place to stay too. In fact, that's probably why the Romans said that not everyone could go to Corinth, because they knew the expenses one would have to go through in order to be able to stay here for even a short period of time. Now, when he arrives here, the Jewish couple of Aquila and Priscilla invite him to stay at their house, where he stays for a period of 18 months. And he worked as a tent maker, which was supposed to be his original profession, and preached to the Philippians. Then the Hebrews accused him of undermining religion. He was brought here to be tried. And of course, as I'm sure you will recall, this was where he made use of his, let's say, citizenship, being a Roman citizen, and was not convicted, but had to leave anyway the city and left from the seaport at Kechre. Do you want to ask me something? No? I've got a sort of hand.
Oh, because I couldn't hear you.
Oh, well, I was just speaking about St. Paul, the second missionary, his visit here to Corinth, which lasted for 18 months. And of course, well known are also the letters that he sent to the church here, the epistles, epistole, which is actually how it's pronounced, modern Greek, as I say, the letters that I'm a barefoot person.
Come up here and tell me. Come up here and tell me, Chris.
No dogs allowed. Get out of there. That dog right there.
That dog does not pay attention. Imagine the city here.
Is on the northwest, on the Corinthian bay. Now, we only have a small part of this road uncovered. It's paved with marble, gutters on each side to collect the rainwater, by the way. And right here where we're standing was the end of the road. There were steps, some of which still survive here. They lay down to marble. And this was where the Propylaea was.
Propylaea.
The male figure columns that we saw in the museum before. So this was one entrance into Corinth from its course elected. Now on the other end, towards your right, we have the remains, first of all, at the very end to the right, of the baths of Eurycles. Now this was wall baths, very much like the saunas that we have nowadays. Terracotta floor, hollowed roof, where they boiled water. And there have been traces found of those, and made all out of stone. Now the water was also supplied from the Pyrene fountain. This is the fountain that is exactly following some hope, by the way, still remain standing. Stop. Now this fountain had 6 heart-shaped openings that also around. So towards my left here,
These are the bathhouses. You see the Roman columns. An ancient pool right here in front. See the ancient columns there and how they would go back in there. Notice the drainage systems. Sailor in a ship. Byzantine Basilica there. Here are the columns around the ancient area.
I need to step up a stone.
No, you're fine.
Tell me when you start.
Well, I've started.
Welcome to Corinth. We have bathhouses over here for your pleasures. If you need to worship, we've got the Temple of Apollo up there. And I know a real good tent maker on the other side of town who works for this couple named Priscilla and Aquila. He can make you a good tent.
What do you got for pleasure here?
You don't want to know.
Welcome to the bathhouses at Corinth. I'm not sure whether there's any hot water here. There wasn't made any mention of it. But as much sin as they had going on here, they didn't need much hot water.
What about the swimming pool here?
Well, that is a good thought. I'm not sure whether that was a swimming pool or it must have been with the steps coming down into it, that or some meeting area. I must say the site's not been very well taken care of, and frankly disappointing compared to some of the tales we saw in Israel.
Did you see these?
No.
That's the old version of an outside toilet.
No kidding.
That wasn't outside, that was inside.
That's
Well,
inside.
that's what I'm saying.
Now,
Away from the house.
Did they run?
Right there.
Is that a one-seater or a two-seater?
There's a two-seater here, there's a three-seater down there.
Up there.
I guess it worked.
Can you go that side?
This is the Aegean. It's the Aegean Sea.
See.
coming from Corinth back toward Athens. Watching pretty beach area down there earlier. Beautiful sunshine coming behind the clouds. There's some pretty good waves out there.
Boy, let me tell you what.
Ready to cut your toenails. Cutting up the sheets.
The road's been out here back there. It's never been dug up or anything. And these stones.
Several of the ships in the harbor here.
Arthur who? They have no idea.
This is the best part of the whole day.
I know. Look, John. See that sun coming down out there? It's pretty. That's right, because we can open up.
Get these ugly tank cars. Makes a stroke from that.
This is a look of the luggage brigade. We invaded a Novotel here in Athens 2, going on up.
Decided not to.
Well, you sure got told.
We need a cameraman. This is our last meeting together before we go our various ways. And I do want to say that you've been a great group. There's no serious problems. You can have this when you have to go back. I don't know, it seems like every group gets better for a while. So come back next May for even a better tour, be a longer tour anyway. And I've enjoyed being with you during this time. What I'd like to do first of all is just go around the room and let each one of you tell what has impressed you the most, you've enjoyed the most over the whole tour, but just pick one thing that has maybe brought the Bible to life to you more, or has made some impressions on you that will be with you the rest of your life. So just give some thought to it. We just go around the room and see. I'll start with my right hand.
Oh. Well, I think Masada is just something really special. And I think you all see now what it is. And the more you think about it, and the more you talk with other people, the more you realize that most people don't know very much about Masada, if they know about it at all. So the fact that they had running hot water, and so many things way back there, it's just really fascinating. And then I loved Corinth today. That was a real privilege to get to do that. So I thought that was extra special.
Well, I'm sort of sorry for
I think two different times that the standing where Jesus may have stood, said upon this rock I will build my church, and then in the Garden of Gethsemane, places like the Acropolis, where you see what it looked like then, except for the parts that have been destroyed or fallen down. Much of Jerusalem, as he said, has been completely removed and rebuilt. Two spots he mentioned that were original. One was Pilate's place, down the lane. I did have a strong feeling when we were going to the tomb of Jesus. We were disappointed when we went inside and saw how it was, but in a great show.
It's pretty hard for me to say what is the most outstanding entire trip. Being a builder, and I've done lots of pretty big buildings myself, I was very much impressed with the way or how they may have built all of those massive big temples. But I don't know how in the world they got it done. I had to have a helicopter to do it. But I was also very much impressed with the Garden of Gethsemane and where Jesus was buried. And this trip has been a very enlightening thing to me. Growing up in a very strict religious family like I did all my life, and hearing about it all my life, it's helped me to understand it a lot better than I ever thought I could.
I think you might know or may not know Chester has a Dunkard background. It's very strict.
What kind of background?
Dunkards. What was the other name you called them? German Baptist?
Their real name, Parmas, is the old German Baptist. I was that way, and when I was a boy, we didn't even have a car, we drove a horse and buggy. And another thing that I might say, I had a brother that was older than me, he's been dead about 50 years. But he said to me one day, he said, you know, you and I have come a long ways in this world. We've come from the days of the horse and buggy to the man on the moon. And I never thought about it, but he was right.
What?
I thought the same thing. I was mightily impressed as we went through the country at the development of the infrastructure, the roads, the power plants, the irrigation system, electrical distribution systems, the constant construction of modern types of construction. And I was looking for a lot more backward country than I found. I was really impressed by the environment of Jerusalem and all the places where Christ might have been. But I think the Mars Hill, where it was illustrated, not our God does not dwell in temples made with hands. We pointed to that magnificent structure up on the hill, where the Greeks thought that their gods were in that structure. They're not structures in that.
I was impressed with everything so much in the Bible and in California. I think one of the sights that I liked so much was that little woman watering her sheep out on the side of the road. Another impressive one was out on the Sea of Galilee.
You notice what we're doing tonight? We're reliving the trip.
Well, I think I've told everybody here just about, because I was so excited the first day we were here. And we went up to see the Parthenon, necropolis, and I knew where I was going. When I actually saw the Parthenon, I can't begin to tell you the feeling. I was like a child. I was clapping my hands, and it's a Parthenon, it's a Parthenon. It wasn't real until I saw it.
Well, had you ever been to Nashville?
I have seen it in Nashville. But you see, I saw the real thing.
Yes.
And I knew that was the real thing, that I could look at the books and things, and then to know that Paul and Marcio, and then the side of Jerusalem, that's where Jesus came alive.
I have to say, I guess, the Sea of Galilee and the Garden of Gethsemane, because the Garden of Gethsemane was just like what I pictured, and of all the places where they said, well, he could have been here, but we're not sure. But those were two places that, we were sure of.
You know he was on the Sea of Galilee.
I've just been impressed by the entire trip so much. I don't know any one thing that's been any more outstanding than another in a way. It's just all been great.
I guess the Sea of Galilee, because like Laura said, we talked about that, it made, we knew that he was there. And also, one thing that really impressed me was at the Garden Tomb, because when we were sitting there and we were singing things, it made things really reality for me. I mean, I thought a lot about things, and I think that's probably what impressed me the most, and what hit me the most.
I think I was most impressed by Jerusalem. I guess I didn't expect the portion of it to be so modern that is. And yet, just down the road, you found the lady watering the sheep and all. It's just such a contrast.
Well, I love the Sea of Galilee and the area around where I felt Jesus' presence more in those areas for some reason. And then I was very thankful that he did build his church so that I could meet all these fine Christian people that we've had so much fun together with.
I guess the first thing would be the Parthenon. That was visually the most impressive thing I've ever seen in my life. I loved it. And probably second would be the tomb of, the supposed birthplace of Jesus. It was really powerful to me. And third would, one of the best things of the group was the group. I really had a great time with all you guys.
I thought it was neat to see a real manger and to see the supposed birthplace, because it's such a different idea than what you get in Sunday school or from all the pictures you see. And I just never would have thought of it being like that. So it was neat to see what it really would have been like.
I think Tell Dan was a favorite of mine. Gave you insight into the children of Israel, the reality of the struggle that they had to be faithful to God and some didn't, and that was an illustration of how some of them departed. And I guess it was so interesting to see it where you felt like that the place had been so clear. I just really enjoyed Tell Dan.
I finally come to realize not so much the sights, but to understand why the Jews rejected Jesus a little bit, understanding their culture. To me, how could one refuse the Messiah? And it's coming to understand the culture has helped me to get an insight on that. And as for my favorite place to see, I'm with Tony, probably Tel Dan or Bethshem.
I enjoyed all of the scenery and the sights, but the thing that I got most from it was the understanding of culture, geography, and history that will have so much more meaning to me when I read words and phrases in the Bible that I've passed over all these years and accepted, I guess, as American culture thinking. And that's the thing that I have appreciated so much, was just a better understanding of the Word.
Tabga was a place that I'll remember. That's where they built the church to commemorate the miracle of the multiplication. And at the front of the building, they had a little mosaic with 2 fish and the basket in the middle. And that's on the cover of our church history textbook. So I saw that every other morning this whole past semester. And getting to see it in real life was a real thrill for me. And they had it everywhere. And there was this one shirt that had that design on it, and it said, "Love, like the loaves and the fishes, always seems like too little until you start giving it away."
Gethsemane by far was the greatest experience of all the trip for me, because I've often thought about this, and when I think of prayer, I often think of Christ going to the Garden of Gethsemane. So there are times in my life when I go out into private places, maybe even the woods, and so I feel like I'm going to the Garden of Gethsemane, the Garden of Prayer. And that's what it was for Jesus. It was the Garden of Prayer, but it was also the Garden of Victory. He left that garden, he went to victory. That's where he was headed. And so that will always be in my mind, that garden scene and the devotional that we had there. Really moving.
Well, maybe it's my turn to give a little bit of a word. Maybe it's something different from a perspective that maybe many of you didn't. But I'd like for you to sort of examine what a blind man saw on this trip. All of the things that we've done, and the places we've been, are nothing more than brick and mortar and stone and so much real estate. If we're not mindful of one thing that we need to all take home with us, and that is that in each of those places where we have been, there's been something very special, something very unusual, and something very divine about each and every one of the visits we've made. And that is the fact that where these things have happened, the scriptures indicate, and the glory of God filled them. It filled the temple, it filled the tabernacle. It filled the lives of people that God used and the places where God was to bring about some very special events and happening that made each and every one of those places unique in their own way. I bring to mind the fact that as we go home, that wherever God's people are and wherever God's people serve, the glory of God fills that place. So I would think that from the standpoint of my perspective, that as we depart and as we go our separate ways, we take what we've learned, use it in a very special and unusual way, in a way that most people will never be able to see the things that we've seen and do the things that we've done. And understand that as we serve the Master and as we go our way, that in our own very special way, in our own very unique manner, that wherever we are, whatever we do, and wherever we serve, that the glory of God will be used and manifested in us as we go and as we do.
Well, the whole thing to me, man, really lift me up higher. But my life never be the same after we prayed in the Garden of Tomb. That's the most thing that I could think of that really moved me.
Mine was kind of another tool. I have a greater depth of comprehension of civilization as it was then, the contrast to today. And not just the building blocks, but the people, the cross-section of society. I saw in the entire trip, and I was looking for it all the time, I saw one man, one person wearing sandals with bare feet. And that was down in the alleyways in the old town that we're going through. So I was searching for something to reflect from and use as a something in the back of my mind I can use as a tool to interpret better what I read and what I study. And I think they're pretty well founded all the way around. It's covers every aspect of that speak of. So it's very usable to you in the future.
One of the most moving experiences for me on the Sea of Galilee and in the Garden of Gethsemane. Those were the two most moving experiences, not only being someplace where I knew Jesus had been, but also the worship and the singing and the praying that we had together meant a lot to me. And the most informative and helpful to me in understanding the Bible and the times of the Bible were when we went to the old city in Jerusalem and when we could view the countryside where Jesus probably roamed and seeing the people as they lived, perhaps not exactly, but seeing an older culture and then seeing the terrain and imagining Jesus in his wanderings and preaching.
I think that's true with me too. I saw a lot of the different types of terrain, and a lot of times it would say he went up from or he down to, and now you have you can see it on a map, but it's just real now, whereas before it wasn't as much. And I really think the Sea of Galilee was, I don't know, I really couldn't say what was my favorite. I enjoyed the tale with Megiddo and Dan. Just the whole thing, being with all these really good people. I love y'all.
Well, the thing with me, and my wife and I talked about it every night that we'd come back, that this whole trip just seemed like a dream. That, just to actually be here where all these things took place. But I think, like everyone else, to pick out one certain thing that impressed me more than anything else, I don't know what it would be. But the very first thing that we did when we came here to Athens, and Dino got up there by Mars Hill and quoted the first 5 lines of Paul's sermon in the original Greek, was just unreal to me. And to have that, to be able to see the altar that Jeroboam had built, and just all those things where these things actually took place, it's just overwhelming to me. Well, I have about 14 things I want to talk about.
I said 1 or 2.
But I'm going to call myself and just talk about one. I grew up in Gunnersville, Alabama. We had water everywhere. And I've always liked the water, but I've never really been good at swimming. I can swim, but I floated like a millstone. And going to the Dead Sea and just laying out there. You can't sing. That made my trip wonderful. I floated for the first time in my life.
I enjoyed everything, and I can't pick out one thing either. But I think what's really neat is to see where Jesus has been. And not only that, but like many of you said, to see how the Old Testament has fit in as well, the events there. But I think one thing we all need to know, and I think we all have, is how we've allowed Christ to work in our lives, to grow closer to one another. It's been so good to meet everybody. And I was going to say the Dead Sea too was really the most exciting thing.
I think the first day where we saw the Parthenon and Mars Hills, we thought the trip was worth it right there. Anything else would be a bonus. And the Sea of Galilee was quite an experience, and the garden. And I got thinking, in grade school you take geography because you have to. You read about these things and you memorize some stuff to get by the test, and then it really doesn't mean anything. You can't put it through. And now that I have seen some of the places
give us a real background and detail, like on Masada and other places. But when I read them kind of in anticipation of this, I'm just a whole bunch of facts that all blending together. But now that I've seen the site, then I'm going to go back and read those books again. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to go read the Bible again. And every place we've been, I think will have a new meaning as I read it. And I think that's going to be how I would put me is read the Bible and picturing in my mind what we've experienced and what we've seen.
Well, I've been able to do something that I never, ever thought I'd ever be able to do. And I consider it a privilege and a gift from God to be able to see, feel, and touch some of these places that we all know are so meaningful.
Well, it's been an easy question to answer the first day of Mars Hill. I'm down there, and the sheriff told himself, and I said, I'll never see, I didn't expect to see anything deeper, but I almost did every day. But as far as going back in time, I'd say that I felt like we did a better job of going back in time when we saw the Jericho Road. It seemed very primitive, at least what was inside us. Of course, we were in a bus, air conditioned and so on, and free from all the dust and debris or whatever. But down in that ravine there, I can imagine what the Jericho Road was in the day of Jesus and the story of the Good Samaritan. But I still stick to
mountains, the valleys, the Sea of Galilee, the River Jordan, and even the desert. And I feel like this was really what he created, more like what Jesus saw today.
I guess what impresses me is how little I knew about the Middle East and the people, and how biased I've been in the past, and I think I'm working on it now. I don't know where I am in terms of just Arab people in general. I figured that they were a bunch of terrorists. Somebody kind of pointed it out to me. But when you begin looking at people individually, they aren't a whole lot different than us. It's kind of like said earlier in terms of the culture, the opportunities of dropping back into the old city, seeing the people at work, they play, kids playing marbles, and mothers getting after their kids, and the kid who, when somebody was yelling at us, $1 American, this one young man come walking through with his kid, with his friends, and he told me, I'll sell you my brother for 1,000 shekels. I said, I'll take 2. He just stood there and laughed. And the little boy that tried to pick his pocket and was nearly successful. And I was explaining to him I didn't have to pay $1 for a branch. There was a whole tree of branches. And I got bills, and I said, I'll sell you this one for a shekel. And the kid laughed and reached in his pocket and gave me a shekel, and I gave him the branch that Bill had bought for $1. and the kid just laughed. And I think it brings it home that there are people there who can be reached when they understand that you really respect them, and that when you get away from just the tourist and passing in an air-conditioned bus, and really start meeting the people, you see a tremendous potential there. And to be very honest, years ago, when these two people first decided to go to Israel, I read about it in the paper, I didn't know. And quite frankly, I thought that was the goofiest thing I'd ever heard. And years later, I've never told you that. Years later, I'm beginning to understand that everybody ought to have the opportunity to hear the gospel, including these people who I really thought sons of Ishmael. They're probably the scum of the earth. So what impresses me is an old man like me can change in an attitude, and we're playing enough work there.
That is kind.
Well, like I said, this is our third trip, and every time I say the same thing. I'm just always overwhelmed at the Garden of Gethsemane, because I see Jesus there, and I see him all alone, even though he has his trusted apostles there, he's still just all alone.
First of all, Ron did give the boy that shekel back. But I guess, first of all, I just have to make a confession. I mean, this is someplace I've never wanted to come. I mean, I had priorities that, I just never had any desire to come. And,
Sometimes your wife is right.
our daughter's the one that really did this. But just every day, just time after time, how can I put across the people the feeling that it is to come here? I mean, it's just, it makes you ashamed of yourself that you felt the way you did. And stood on the rock where Jesus set up on this rock, I built my church, and Garden of Gethsemane. The two that really reached me, and Tim's comment there, on the medical term, I don't know what the medical term was, but in deep distress you can sweat blood. I just got one of the hands.
No, I can't, because it's still is. But it has to be the Garden of Gethsemane. I can't say anything. Singing Night with Heaven in the Garden of Gethsemane, whenever we were singing songs anywhere and we were talking about Jesus and the things that he did, I was moved inside. And the Night with Evan Pinion in the garden, so many times during communion or right before communion or singing that song, I've never had the feeling that I had when we were there. It really seemed Jesus. Being here with all of you, and this is like anytime you go on your trip with Christians and you just get built up and your faith is fortified up in here. It gives you a strength that you hate to be departed from, because you know that you're going to go home and you're going to be with the ones that you love, but you're not going to have we're like a fortified wall here. And, you get home and you get into your life, and you'll always remember this, and it'll be very special, and you'll want to come back to it. But I don't know if it is this way for y'all, but sometimes as you move away from it, you kind of lose some of it. And I just don't want to lose any of it. I have to thank God that I'm here with these poor people, especially. And it's not me that got them here. I've been praying for months that we would all be here. So God answers.
Amen.
About a few years ago, Mom and Dad said they were going to Israel. I said, well, that's neat. It'd be kind of a neat place to go. And I could tell they were both pretty excited about it. And then they went, and they came back, and they were real excited about it. So and they kept going. I thought, well, this needs to be pretty neat. And I just wanted to thank them, both of them, because they're really the reason that we're here, because they financed our trip.
Scholarship.
Yeah. Really appreciate that. But like everyone has said, there's so many things. And Dad came back and he showed us, 7,000 slides. Something like that. And after about the 500th slide of ruins, you kind of go, well, I don't know. But you really just can't explain, the feeling. Because I'll go back and I'll show some people the slides, And I'll try to explain to them what it was, but I know that they won't feel what I have felt. And, I don't know what it is, but it's really indescribable. And it's like hearing people who have gone swimming in the salt sea and actually going in it, you can't describe it. It's like, you just float. just to me.
Last but not least.
How much time do I No, I'll just say a few things, really. I'm just proud of all of you because I have been excited for you. I have been excited 32 years over this place. And I'm just happy that you could come and be able to share just a little bit of what we have been able to have and live with for a long time. And I'm also pleased to see that each of you have had your own needs satisfied in different ways. I think this is just great. And I know that your life will never be the same. I think you'll be more spiritual. The Bible will be like a new book, and I hope you'll come back someday.
Well, you did mention the things I thought you'd mentioned. I thought Jack would have his most memorable moment in Seven Arches Hotel coming out of the dining room. Maybe Chester and
Well, I'll guarantee you one thing, I take home the fact that I shed blood.
Try to compare that with the Lord's. I said, Jack, that will work.
I thought maybe it'd be Chester's not being able to find his passport there in the hotel until I told him where it was. At any rate, we're glad that you're here and that you have gotten something from the trip and something to take back besides souvenirs that you bought. That's the small items that you're taking back. And the bigger items are those things in your mind. Well, let's change the tone of things. We want to offer some awards tonight as the final time that we had together. And Elsie will help me here. She doesn't know what she's supposed to do, but she's pretty good at ad-libbing.
Me? Sure no.
Okay. We want to give an award to the most loving couple that we have in the group. And that is, and Elsie will explain why, the Tracys.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that they were holding hands in the mosque, and they were asked not to touch one another in the mosque.
Exactly right.
Is that
We want to give an award to the youngest married couple. How long have you been married? When did you marry?
June.
Huh?
June.
Since then?
June of
No,
'94.
94.
Okay, so you're the youngest married.
Unless somebody else got married while we're on the street.
Well, we want to give an award. Butterfields.
It's not worth an award.
You'll never be ashamed.
No, let me see what it is for. So we want to give our blessings to you. This is fertility. It's fertility. And of course, it's got wheat on it, and that's a symbol symbol of fertility, so we want to wish them well.
I want you to keep that hanging up in your house. We want to give an award to the couple that spent the most money.
All right.
We thought probably that it might be to the G's.
AG.
What is it? What is it?
Show it to everybody.
What is it?
Chocolate corn.
It's actually chocolate.
I want some chocolate.
Let's pass, these are really clever, pass one around, we'll tell them to give it back. But this is like five shekel is Israeli corn,
They're chocolates.
but they're chocolates.
Would y'all like
That's the best part.
This thing, I'll know you ate it.
All right, we have an award for the best listener in the group to our very good guy. And that will be to Brendan.
Yes.
Yes.
Surprise.
Oh, okay. The guy's carrying the big grapes.
I thought it would be some earrings.
Okay. The flirtiest person.
Sydney.
Who would that be but Heather?
I demand a recount. I think it should have been Sydney.
Yeah, but Laura's the, well, I won't tell what happened.
Oh, yeah. I think I can tell this straight, that at the changing of the guards in this city, the guard who was standing there so stoic form winked at her. And I guess she winked back.
What?
We give an award to the best trooper in the group. I think that goes to Sandy.
Yes.
It's the Egyptian Polaroid.
The best one.
Explain what it is.
That's made on papyrus from the Egyptian plant. It's very, very pretty and hand painted with gold paint.
Huh?
That's what they use for paper, and it's where we get the word paper. We gotta have one for the oldest one in the group. Is there anyone older than 81?
Well, now, on the feet. Y'all probably know I ride a motorcycle. And my kids all ride a motorcycle. Y'all belong to the motorcycle club. Not me, I don't like it. Well, think of one of these conventions, and they say, you wanna go along, Dad? And I said, yep, I'll go along. Well, they all ride Hondas. I ride a Harley. The Honda group just tears me apart for riding a Harley. Of course, I know why it is, it's because they all can't afford to ride a Harley. But anyway, they always give an award for things. And they always give an award for the oldest rider. And for some cause or other, I always win that award. And the last time was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the man said, well, can I give the award for the oldest rider? Everybody above the age of 55, stand up. So they all stood up. I said, stand up, Dad, stand up, Dad. So I finally got up. So when he says, 56, 55-year-old sit down. 57, 56-year-old sit down. Well, they got to 77, and I'm still standing there. 78, 79. He says, I guess he's just going to stand there and stare me down. But when they finally got to 82, the whole crowd stood up. So you can't beat me out. I got this part of it all won.
What'd you get?
What did I get? Shalom. Thank you.
That's great.
I think we need one for the funniest person in the group. And that award almost has to go to Dick. Well, you have to explain.
Oh, there's so many things I can say about that. I don't know, that you mean?
What's that?
I'm not sure what he's got. Oh,
It's an
my.
evil eye.
He's got the evil eye.
He needs it.
This is a very important part of the Middle East culture. When you have blue beads or the evil eye, people will put this. George had one on the bus, if any of you happen to notice. And they have them with them on anything that somebody might envy. For instance, you know how important boys are here, and a woman has a bunch of girls and her neighbor lady has a boy. She's gonna put the evil eye around that baby's neck or arm because somebody will be jealous of that baby and something might happen to that little boy. And so anything that they have, a new car, a new camel, a new donkey, well, whatever, they have to put the evil eye on it to keep something bad from happening to it.
Remember, pass that.
It's like a rabbit
So I'm gonna wear it Dick's
He's gonna wear it around his neck.
Dick may put it on his wife. All right, we ought to have an award for the healthiest person on the trail. I guess that would go to Tim.
From the Dead Sea, Ahava soft soap from the Dead Sea. You're welcome. Good.
Oh, we had a hard time figuring out this one. The happiest person on the trail. Finally decided ought to go, I think Ron will agree with me on that, to the south. All right.
Oh, she got a wild lamb. Oh, Ron, you may have to explain this, how smiley she has been.
We don't have enough time.
We don't have enough time.
Okay, this is a real award now. I mean, it's fitting. The longest lasting hairdo on the trail.
So that does it, you're gonna give it a word for the dirtiest.
I want you to know she has not washed her hair or done anything to it this whole trip, and look at
When it gets to looking too bad, or smelling too bad, this one here, crawling.
Don't mess her hair up.
I may have to wear it on tomorrow. I'm not sure I can run one more day with this hair. Isn't this her band? Oh, yes, no, women really don't, this is for me. They're fat, you know, you can do
Did you watch that, Brennan? Yeah.
Thank you.
I was trying to figure out how to do it like airfare.
They didn't make it.
There is a story to that, some people know. Okay, move on. The youngest member of the group. I wonder who.
Miss Waller.
Got here over 150 years old. 60, 70, 80. Did I get 90?
Is that you?
All right.
I know. That's a great.
Another proposal for marriage.
I could have got you camels. What is it?
It's a camel. Oh, this is a dove of peace. So when you marry, you will have a very peaceful life. That's a very nice thing.
Not until then.
Well, let's see. We ought to give an award for the one that took the most notes. That almost has to go to Angela.
Yeah. She was taking notes every time.
I think she was writing all of it. The little fish, of course, you need to put it on a little chain. And that's the same as wearing a cross in the Bible lands. It means you're a Christian faith.
Thank you.
Well, we want to give an award to the one who bought the most camels.
Could be in the running on this.
Camels. Go ahead, a bid. Who bought one?
3.
3. Anyone more? 12. Anyone more than 12? 23.
Who bought more than 23 camels? Jerry?
Here's your prize.
Another camel.
I bought them for my children in my class. I'm not decorating my home. I'm a fertile camel.
Is his name Myrtle?
I think we ought to have a prize for the one who's able to quote the most scriptures. Jack, that has to be.
The Lord is my shepherd, written out on this. It feels like a leather. It's very, very nice.
Thank you so much.
Jack didn't have to read it, he can quote it.
Thank you.
Okay, who doesn't have any kind of reward? Hold up your The ones that haven't received an award, I'm going to start over here with, okay, Donnie. I'm going to give some trivia questions. If you can't answer, the next one will answer, and we'll have an award for the one that answers. Name 4 things that determine the location of a tell.
Anton went over and over and over with that.
He said there'd be a test.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Water,
What?
light,
What was that?
light. Let's see, accessibility. Let's see, desirability for the area, for people wanting to come. I'm stretching.
You're next. Products. Third.
They were right.
Water, roads, you said land, products.
Yeah.
Two seconds.
They said, water, road, soil, and accessibility of location.
Okay, so Mr. Moore. That really rings a bell.
This rings a bell, don't forget that.
Okay, next question.
He's got
All right, next question. When we were at Megiddo, he gave 2 main reasons for a granary, to store grain. Sister Stone. Next.
Well, I would say to prepare for, the rest of the year, our famine, I don't know. I know we were talking about.
That's one.
What's the other one? Come on.
They don't give you the award. What's the next one?
I think you said to be used for seed.
Yes.
All right. All right, who's next down there? What is the meaning of Via Maris? Via Maris. Via Maris. Over again.
I know he did, I remember him saying it, but I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Via Maris.
Way of the sea.
Well, that's good, that's good. All right. Who's next there? All right. The meaning of joy
that written in my notes. Can I go look? I don't remember.
All right, who told you that? Spencer.
What?
You don't know?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Go ahead, Pastor. I heard it.
I heard somebody tell you. Okay. No, he said he didn't know. Next.
I don't know. I'm on DSA Valley, I don't know.
Who's next there?
I don't know.
All right.
All right.
Okay. What's the meaning of Megiddo? Let's see what that means. Megiddo.
Are you out of the running now?
Megiddo. Stone.
Give him that.
Megiddo. Megiddo. Going around. Megiddo.
I know, but I already got an award.
Let me back up. Let's start all over. Magdala, not Megiddo. Magdala. Magdala. No, not the meaning of the word. Magdalene. Magdalene.
What do the Lord?
No one? Tower.
Okay.
Tower.
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 Start over here. Again. Northernmost town visited in Israel. Give that one. All right.
I think she can see. This is-
Flowers.
These got flowers of the Bible lands and then, of course.
Southernmost place visited in Israel. Yeah.
Sodom?
Sodom.
That's it.
All right.
What's the question?
Question.
I want
I
to
want the answer. I know the question. Meaning of agora.
I said it again today.
Go around. Agora.
Pass on.
Agora.
Marketplace.
Mark.
Let's see.
Market.
Okay.
That word's
No, I
got a
won't.
crossword puzzle so many times. I had learned that before I got over here.
I'd like to express my appreciation to my hosts and hostesses on this particular trip. And so to Ron and Edna, I'm presenting this book, Jerusalem as Jesus Knew It. Last but not least, I present to the one that helps me more than anything else, Elsie, the boat, Jesus. No, what is it? Jerusalem as Jesus Knew It.
Thank
I have a question or a statement. Who's got my evil eye before I put the evil eye
Oh,
on.
Who's got his evil eye?
The guilty looks like Donella.
That was a statement, that was a question. Okay, is this a trivia question?
Just show me hello or goodbye.
Peace.
It depends on whether you use it once or twice.
It depends on what?
Whether you use it once or twice. Usually going away, it says so long, twice.
Well, I just wondered whether you were trying to tell me goodbye.
Actually, it's the name of the new motorcycle gang. The over 80 crowd.
Very good. Well, we've had a good time, and Elsie and I have enjoyed it, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have. See, Jack, can you quote the scripture there that was about the judgment that took place with Paul at Corinth?
Possibly not completely word for word.
Well, you want to get close to it?
Yeah.
After which, well, before we do that, let's pass the song books around.
Paul stood up in the midst of them and spake to them in the Hebrew tongue, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. I am a Hebrew of the tribe of Benjamin, of the city of Tarsus, and as touching the law, a Pharisee. But of the hope of the resurrection of the dead am I called in question this day. And there arose a dissension between them. And the Sadducees, who did not believe in the resurrection of the dead, questioned and doubted, while the Pharisees said, We find no fault in this man.
Let me read some more of the passage here. This is in Acts 18, beginning with verse 13, saying, This fellow was, well, and when Gallio, who was the deputy of Achaia, it says when Gallio was the deputy of Achaia, the Jews made insurrection with one accord against Paul and brought him to the judgment seat. That was where he was standing in Corinth today, saying this fellow persuaded men to worship God and pray to the law. There was a stone out in front that Dino points to as the possible place where he was chained at the time that he made that speech there in Corinth. And then going on down further, it says, But if it be a question of words and names and of your law, look ye to it, for I will be no judge of such matters. And he drove them from the judgment seat. And all the Greeks took Sosthenes, the chief ruler of the synagogue, and beat him before the judgment seat. And Gallio cared for none of those things. And so you were standing right on the property, the place where Paul was judged on that day. All right, shall we pray?
Father, we have every assurance that as we address you this evening, that you are listening to us, and more than that, you consider us your children. For that, we are extremely thankful. Father, as you are well aware, through the last several days, we have been in a number of places where historically and geographically many wonderful events have taken place. We appreciate, Father, the opportunity that each of us have had be able to live, to step back into history in our minds, to think about the things that we've studied in the past, and to be able to see the reality, the possibility of these things happening, and encourages us, strengthens our faith. Help us, Father, to be mindful of your word, the opportunity that we have of being able to visit every instance in the Scripture that is there for instruction and for faith building, and be able to share that faith, that we might be able to have the assurance through your Son to be able to live eternally with you. And compared with all the wonderful things that you've seen through the last few days, you can't even begin to imagine how wonderful that tour must be, and that it would not end, that it would be perfect, that it be with you. We appreciate so much, Father, the opportunity that we have in this particular period where we can very easily and very comfortably travel such large distances in such a short period of time. And we can even, through the technology of the day, be able to pick up a phone and talk nearly halfway around the world to loved ones that we can keep in touch with, which has never been possible before. And help us, Father, to, in our affluence, in our technology, and in the conveniences of the day, remember that we also have an obligation, responsibility, to being able to share the word. And help us, Father, to be able to use every single talent that we have, every skill that we can develop, to be able to spread your word. Not just find comfort and strength in the learning and the faith that is developed, but that we be able to be encouraging other people that they might, even through our poor examples, understand that none of this earth can be in the likeness of God. You realize, Father, that it's your Son, his life, his example, your word, by which we truly can become your children. And it's through no goodness or no fault of our own. It's through the forgiveness of your Son. Through the forgiveness of your Son. It was tremendous faith that he had in you to be able to leave heaven and come to earth, to be able to walk in the very land that we have walked the last few days, and to be assured on a regular basis through the vehicle of prayer that you were with him. We're thankful for this, that he was able to endure what we would never be able to endure. The sole purpose is not being in heaven, to be able to return to you and with us if we're found faithful. Father, we are a long way from home in this world. We'll be traveling a long distance. There are possible hazards ahead. We pray, Father, that you give us a safe journey. Help us to arrive at our destinations, find our families well, be able to go back to our various responsibilities, better because we've had this experience. We're so thankful, Father, for your Son, for each servant who has impacted our lives, and help us truly be servants of yours in your Son's name.
I think we've learned some many things on this trip that are physical, material, and spiritual significance. And I think our material trip, physical trip home, certainly should have some spiritual significance as we think about the home again. Lead me gently home, Father, lead me gently home, when my thoughts are ended, and parting days have come. Sin no more shall tempt me, and bad news. Good news, there'll be no wake-up call. Bad news, if you don't wake up, you won't go home.
I'm Heather Hale, and I'm from Henderson, Tennessee.
Sidney Roper, Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Leila Magon, West Plains, Missouri.
I forgot my name.
All right.
I'm George from Marville, Arkansas.
I am Brennan of Gallatin.
Donnie and
Hank Henderson.
from Sacramento.
Go ahead,
My name
John.
is Johnny Manette from Columbia, Tennessee, and I have camera fright.
Tanya Foster from Tampa, Florida. Sarah Green from Merida, Mississippi. I love everybody.
Kathy Tracy, difference in their age.
Gary Tracy, Fairfield, Illinois, and I do want a copy of this.
You do want a copy.
I haven't had a lick of sense.
Angela Kent from Henderson, Tennessee.
Her husband, Chris.
I was scolding Megan.
My name is Ross Burrow.
Are you running for president?
No.
This
Too
is a
embarrassing.
difficult age at 2 years old.
My name is Keith
That's a little hard.
Hi, I'm Gina. We're from Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Bill and Anna Mae Anderson. Gallatin.
Home of the Greenway.
Home of the Greenway.
You want my name and
Yes.
address?
Yeah, let's go, Sandy.
Sandy Cohen, and I'm from Sacramento, California.
Sacramento.
Reba Ballou from the capital of California.
Capital of California.
This is Dr. Butterfield, and I'm her husband, Ron.
He's also Dr. Butterfield.
He's also doctor and doctor.
Doctor and husband.
Sacramento, California.
Reverse role
And
reversal here.
this is Dorothy Chandler, and I'm her most ardent admirer. From now on, she's going to wear the evil eye.
The evil eye. Brother Roy.
How do you do? Royal Stone, Delaware, Oklahoma, and my wife Geraldine are the same resident.
Jerry Stone.
Okay, guys.
Jacques Phillips, Benton, Kentucky.
Benton.
Mark Spencer, Marvel, Arkansas.
Marvel, like Marvel Comics.
Marvelous Marvel. And Charlotte.
Okay. AG's here.
Wendell and Jen from Clinton, Mississippi.
Clinton, Mississippi. Near my. Okay.
Chester Oilers, Sacramento, California.
Sacramento, Brother Chester.
Giselle Taylor, Pikeville, Tennessee.
Pikeville, Tennessee.
I'm Helen Baker from Jackson.
Jackson.
Francis Sullivan, Jackson, Tennessee.
Abu Eric.
Abu Eric.
McMinnville, Tennessee.
One more step, excuse me.
And Doris Clark, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Lois Clark, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Everett Huffer, Henderson, Tennessee.
Elsie Hufford, Henderson, Tennessee.
Henderson, Tennessee. And this is George. Looking out the window, we're now over the Swiss Alps. Beautiful sight. Idea how many people's on this airplane?